I want to talk about Anthony Pettis.
Okay.
I really fucking like Anthony Pettis. He's such a fucking nice guy. His punch against Wonderboy, who we just talked about earlier, his Superman punch off the cage, and um, and his Showtime kick was 10 years ago. He did that Showtime kick against Benson Henderson. He fought against what was his name, Alex Morono. So this was an important fight for him in welterweight division.
Because do you reckon if he didn't win this fight, he would have probably got cut?
The only reason that would occur is because the UFC is just making some drastic cuts. If they're getting rid of Yoel Romero, and we'll talk about that later, then they might get rid of some of these fighters that perhaps have a two fight losing streak, 3 fight losing streak, things like that, out of maybe 5. Yeah, it's an interesting call. I think he possibly could have been on the chopping block. And it sucks because he's a fucking vet in WEC and the UFC.
Yeah, he's been fighting for so long.
I think he looks good at welterweight. I think he does.
Because he's fluctuated between lightweight, featherweight, and now welterweight.
He said he found it really hard to lose the weight because he'd been doing so long that his body started just holding on to the weight. I feel like even as you get older...
Yeah. Your body needs that fat mass.
I think it does, and it's sometimes there's even an argument for fat mass a little bit, and it's not like he's a big fat man at welterweight. He's not. He's still very lean, but a little bit of body fat is not too bad for your body to absorb blows and things like that. Does it?
You need a little bit of junk.
You need a little bit of junk in the trunk. Yeah, but I thought he did. I thought he did very well. I think he did very, very well. What was important to me was. He said after he lost his belt to Rafael dos Santos, he said that he found it really difficult to continue fighting the way he was. He said he was in a big rut, and he said that this year he's been seeing a sports psychologist. And I wanted to talk to you about this. It's funny how something as mental, like mentally straining and mentally challenging as fighting, there's not as much, like you have physical conditioning, but why wouldn't you have mental conditioning? You know, for something that is so mentally challenging as fighting, why wouldn't all the fighters see a psychiatrist or see a psychologist? You know what I mean? Like there's nothing wrong with it. The UFC actually has that allocated. So the UFC employs psychologists for the fighters and it's free.
Yeah.
And that's who he's been seeing. He's been seeing one of the UFC's hired psychologists, and he says it's been huge. He feels so much better, and I think this is interesting to see with Pettis. I think he says he's really starting to make strides and improvements. He says he's been a real plateau for a long time. I think someone's as good as Pettis, because there was often an issue and Chael Sonnen actually said he had an issue when he started fighting before the UFC. He couldn't get past I think it was the second round or the 7th minute or something like that. He couldn't get past it, right? And he wasn't physical conditioning wise, it was mental. So he went and saw a sports psychologist and he said it was huge. And he talked to Uriah Hall on the Ultimate Fighter about that because Uriah Hall had some mental stuff that he wanted to clear up with Chael. And now we've got Anthony Pettis, and he says he's making huge strides with the sports psychology aspect now, and that's really helped him improve as a fighter. Why not? Why the fuck not?
Why the fuck not?
I think a lot of fighters should seek therapy, like just to get their mind right before they start camp and things like that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's because if you think about it, like, you're on the world stage, everyone's watching you, you get knocked out, everyone's going to be talking about it, everyone's going to be playing videos about it, everyone's going to be making memes about it. You know, the mental damage that those things can do to you is, it's uncalculated.
I know.
So, if you go to someone and they can just help you mentally, because it's like mental health and physical health, they go hand in hand, I always felt best mentally when I was best physically, and also felt like I could push myself best physically when I was strongest mentally. So if one fails, then the other one, so you sort of lose the idea of health.
They pull on each other.
Yeah, they do pull on each other massively. Yeah. And for a guy who's always physically fit, but if you're not mentally fit, then because at the end of the day, it is a mental round. Because we've seen fighters who aren't mentally fit, they just should not be in that cage. Like Misha Tate. Do you remember the story of Misha Tate? when she lost her last fight, she was like, "Nah, I'm done. I've had enough." What was the other one? Oh God, I can't remember his name. There's this fighter. If you know him, shout him out. But Joe Rogan talked about him on a podcast with Joe Schilling, and there was this young fighter, young kid, up and coming. He was like, everyone was saying, "Oh, he's going to be the next."
Oh
big thing.
yeah, I don't know his name. You
know the story I'm talking about.
But his coach, the coach was telling him to keep going. He quit on the stool.
Yeah, and he just quit right there.
He got released by the UFC.
Yeah, he's been released.
He got released after that fight.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, look, it is probably one of the hardest things you can do mentally. It's not fun getting constantly punched in the face and kicked in the head, and especially when he's on there and he's gassed out, he's got to go again. You know, like the mental side of things is so important. And yeah, if I feel like if you're not there, if your head's not in that game, you could be in the best shape of your life, but if your head's not in the game on that day, the there's a high unlikely chance that you won't win, or you could get seriously hurt.
Yeah, I feel like Pettis has made some strides with that, and the person that told him to possibly see a psychologist was Donald Cerrone. Donald Cerrone said he'd been seeing a sports psychologist, and it made some huge improvements for him. I feel like if you've had that much experience in the octagon, you don't have as much. You've seen everything, right? You've seen the submission attempts. You've seen a lot of war, right?
Yeah.
Why there's only so much you can increase physically in terms of your fitness.
Yeah.
I think the next move is to improve mental fortitude as well.
His name was Max. I can't pronounce his last name. Roshko. I think it's Polish. Roshko.
Yeah, but he quit on the stool, and it was upsetting because he was an upcoming fighter, you know.
It was the next big thing. They reckon it was the next big thing, and his coach was saying, "Come on, man, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. You're a champion. You're a champion. You can do this." He just say, "Call it." He just. I don't think there was anything the coach could have said in that situation, really.